guys, welcome to Craft Roulette process video 159. And I wanted to take a step back a little bit and do something that's more of an attainable simple card because feel like I've been playing with talking about markers and dies and 5 million stamp sets, but what if we just rewind a little bit and say, well, what if you were just getting started? Because that came up in one of my groups recently, and I think that's a good topic. So this is the Graphic 45 paper I cut up for this side, I should say, we cut up for Kendra's Card Challenge 10. But the Graphic 45s have these cool, like, huge scene pieces. So basically what I'm planning on doing is cutting this here and then just cutting in the middle of these two checkered portions of the pattern just to sort of get so that when I cut this to about 4 inches from here, we'll get the whole mouse and rabbit in frame. So what are our parameters? The first is a card on a card, which, if you're catching the reference in the paper, I think we can accommodate with some of our little playing card gentlemen. I'm not quite sure where I'm going to put this. If something looks weird here, I'm probably going to use it as a covering piece because I feel like that would sort of offset Alice with the blue on sort of that pale blue. And we might use, not on this one, but this border that says you're invited. I think like that might make the base a little bit more together. But basically, we're just going to use a paper trimmer, and these are both from the same collection in Graphic 45. And these were both on sale at like 50% off when I bought them. So I mean, like the whole sticker set was maybe $2, and the pad I think was like 9 or something. But I also wanted to do a little border. Anyway, maybe I should take a break and finish the parameters. So our colors are sky, and our element is white dots, which is why I grabbed this new white gel pen. I haven't tried. This is a Uniball, I believe. Yeah, this is the Uniball one. I actually picked this particular one up. It's kind of weird. This looks very much like the gradient on here almost makes it look like makeup or something. But anyway, a very elegant gel pen. It was actually not very expensive. I think they're only about $2. But anyway, and I did test it on the paper here. So you're getting a pretty nice white dot. Actually, you probably can't see that at all, but there you go. So that should be no problem. I'm planning to probably do that maybe on this side because we'll still have sort of this blue stripe for no reason. So I may do some sort of dotting there. Um, and then our last element our element I should say is table, and this clearly is Alice presiding over the Mad Tea Party from Alice in Wonderland. And that's about it. I thought that it would be fun to use, since I had some painter's tape already, this was left over from the background we did yesterday. I really like how this came out. Once dried, the metallic is much more pronounced, and you can really see it up close and personal, but at a distance, which is kind of where we're just sort of using it as like an ocean background basically for mermaid things. But the nice part about this tape, and I don't think this is Scotch. This is not. This is like knockoff Amazon painter tape, but it's not very sticky, which is good for what we want. But what I'm going to do is block this off right at the uh, place where the card divides so that we can just do a little ink edging. So there are two options here. I think this would be more close with the sky. Actually, it's not at all. This is a much brighter blue. So we could go with sort of a navy and keep it a little more consistent, which was my initial thought. But I have been enjoying this oh boy ink a lot. So I think I'll do the oh boy actually. I was really leaning towards navy, but we'll see how this turns out. Anyway, There are two ways to do this technique. You can just smush the ink directly on there, or you can use a blending brush. A blending brush will apply less ink, and that will give you more of a variegated look. We're going to basically put a panel on top of this, so the way the inside here looks doesn't matter. So if it looks streaky, I would say don't worry about it. Um, Ardith was also saying on Craft Roulette this week that as this dries, the Catherine Pooler inks tend to be sort of automatically smoothing. And really, since we're going for sort of a sky look on this particular card, like if it didn't look like cardstock, that would not bother me at all. Then we just need to go in. Working over the tape, you want to be a little careful, I would say. And in this case, like where the tape is, ideally we won't get any bleed through, of course. When we were working with water yesterday, we were assuming that there might be some areas that we need to work on. But this is basically done, so that's about all you need. So I think these ink pads are about $5. If you were being very economical with your blending brushes, oh, and that looks very nice, you could just go to the dollar store and buy a foundation brush. Or I don't think the actual blending brushes are particularly pricey either, but here we go. So part one is done. We don't actually need the MISTI for anything. I just like to ink blend on top of it because it's easy to clean off. So we're going to let that dry. As you can see, like it looks more splotchy initially, but as this is drying down, you can kind of see how it's sort of blending itself out, especially once we put a panel on top of it. So I will just put that to the side. And the only really, I would say, potentially tricky part of this card is how you decide to sort of cut the actual main focal image. Put that away for a second. And the first thing I want to do is to see, let's get rid of that little, here's on. I want to basically get the middle of this check pattern even with the edge, and then I am going to trim it off. Because I want to keep basically, oh, and that came out really good. I'll actually save this because this would be a cool border for something else, but basically I didn't want to cut the whole thing off because Alice's hand is there. And then what I want to do is the same thing, only with the blue background. The ruler can help here too. What I want to do is basically that should be about right. Basically get this edge lined up. I don't want to whack off too much of Alice's crown, but I think this should be good. And that worked out. Okay. Which I don't know if I probably wouldn't bother saving that piece because it's a little, who cares? Um, and then what we want to do is figure out, let's see, we want the edge here to be at 4 so that we can mat this. And that worked out pretty great. We didn't wind up mangling the ear at all. I think the flower in the corner still looks pretty intact. And then we may need to trim this a little. We can just measure this here quick and say, if I want to be at 5 1/4, needs a little trim. Not much, but just a hair, I think. And there's really nothing on the bottom here that I'm all that passionate about saving. So this is more dry now. If I grab my bone folder quick to just reinforce this edge of the card, let's see what we're looking like. So this I like. We definitely, I think a focal point here makes sense. And then, um, yeah, I think that's about what I want. So then I'm planning to, then basically like, if I grab our stickers, I think we can use our card guys sort of right over here and have it overlap to the edge a little bit, similar to how Alice is breaking the frame, just to make that sort of look similar. So I will turn this guy over and just bring this card together with a little bit of dry adhesive. Of course, you could do the same thing with liquid glue or, if you were brand new, whatever adhesive you happen to have around. Always try and double check where the card opens because we've had that problem before. Um, and I tend to like to, there we go. Now let's grab our sticker. And these are, what I'm thinking is kind of like that because then it will cover over sort of where the Mad Hatter and this mouse are kind of, that's the Mad Hatter's uh, notebook and then the mouse. But I think I want to cover those over but still try and leave the rabbit fully intact. And then we just do that. And I wanted to use this as sort of a sentiment. Oops, let's peel this off and put the other sentiment back. There we go. I was going to go in with, these are actually scissors I usually use for fussy cutting, but I want to cut it right in line with the edge here. Save that little guy in case we need him for something else someday. Just sort of give us a little sentiment along the bottom. So we have a cards on a card. We have a table. We have a lot of sky colors, mostly blue and pink here, but you see trees and other things with sort of these green colors if you're lying on your back looking up, and of course you always have your sort of earth tones as freebies. So I think I'm just going to go in and just sort of polka dot. Well, not really polka dot. These are more little lines than dots, I guess. But I'm just going to accent this a little bit. This Uniball pen is pretty juicy. Usually the issue I have with some of these white gel pens is like they're generally tricky to get going. There is a trick where you can basically use it on your hand a little bit, where basically the oils of your hand will help liberate the ink a bit. And we are done. That was a pretty quick card and pretty much using supplies that were very, very easy to use if you were entry level, right? Because we could spend maybe $10 on a combo pad and then just play with our inks and some trimmers. But that is what we are going with. And thanks for checking it out. Talk to you guys later and have a great rest of your Sunday.